Hello everybody. Well, we've had a short break, but here we are again with David Walliams' Bad Dad. Now then, if you recall, and it's a while ago now, but if you recall, Dad is sort of getting mixed up with some characters who aren't very nice. Anyway, he's promised his son that he won't get involved with them anymore. He's promised. Don't forget that. He's made a promise. So here we are. Bring! Went the doorbell. It was early the next morning, and Frank stumbled down the hallway still half asleep. Looking through the frosted glass in the door, the boy could make out a white flash of dog collar and a larger white flash of teeth. It was Reverend Judith. A word you could use to describe her would be toothy. The trick with the local vicar was not to let her into your home. If you did let the lady in, nice though she was, you would never be able to get rid of her. Most days, the vicar could be found knocking on the doors of the flats, armed with posters she wanted you to put up in your window for jumble sales, cake mornings, or Sunday school. Sometimes she would rattle a tin to collect coins for a new church roof, which was in dire need of replacing. Every day, the vicar would stuff a new leaflet through the letterbox. She would dream up more and more bizarre ways to encourage people to come to church. And here's some of those pictures. There's quite a few there. Psalms and ping pong night, rock and roll with our Lord, rap night, communion wine tasting. Christmas fancy dress was another one. Street dance competition. Graffiti is cool. Come on and graffiti the church wall on Saturday evenings. Crazy golf hymn competition. Well, quite a few things going on there. Lovely to see you again, young Frank, said Reverend Judith with a big toothy grin as Frank opened the front door to her. I'm sorry I bumped into you. It is I who should be apologising. I bumped into you. Sorry. May I come in? Said the vicar. Her face settled into an expression of a dog begging for a bone. In? Asked Frank. Yes, in. As in here? Yes, as in there. As in the flat? Yes. Now? Yes. If it's convenient. Dad called out from the bedroom. Who rang the bell? The vicar, called Frank. Oh no, replied Dad. Whatever you do, don't let that blasted woman in. Reverend Judy's face dropped. She now looked like a dog that had been abandoned on the side of the road. Frank attempted a supportive smile. Dad, she's standing at the door. Well, whatever you do, don't open it. It's already open. There was an awkward silence for a moment. Has she heard anything I just said? Frank looked to Reverend Judith for confirmation. She nodded. Yes, replied Frank. Dad hopped down the hallway in his vest and pants, attaching his wooden leg as he went. Reverend Judith, he announced cheerfully. What a lovely surprise. How super to see you. What are you standing in the door for? Come on in, come on. Thank you. I'd do like to pop around and see as many of my parishioners as possible, said Reverend Judith as she followed the pair into the kitchen. A cup of tea, Vicar? asked Dad. Oh, yes, please. That's very kind. Milk and 2 sugars. Oh, make our guest a cup of tea, will you? Yes, Dad, replied Frank. Making a cup of tea wasn't an easy task in this house. The kettle had been taken away by the hard-faced men, and the family were too poor to afford tea bags or milk. So, Vicar, what can we do for you this fine morning? Asked Dad. Well, as I'm sure you know, it's Father's Day on Sunday, and I was planning something rather special at the church. 1 used tea bag was kept on the side of the sink to be used again and again and again. Now it was looking rather pale, as the tea bag was all bag and no tea. And I wondered if you and your son might like to come up to the front of the church and perform something for the congregation. Frank was listening to this as he placed the sorry-looking tea bag into a chipped and handleless mug and filled it with hot water from the tap. What do you mean, perform? Asked Dad, a note of panic in his voice. He hadn't been to church since he was a child, and the thought filled him with dread. It could be anything, really. Doing a Bible reading, playing the church organ, singing a duet, performing a modern dance piece, or reciting a poem. Frank glanced back at his dad, who had now gone as pale as the tea Frank was making. Well, I'm not much of a poet, replied Dad. My Auntie Flip. Now, she's the poet in the family. Splendid, explained the Vicar. You can read one of hers. What? Somehow, Dad had agreed to something he'd not agreed to. Meanwhile, Frank had added some dried-up yoghurt that had been splattered on the wall many years ago into the cup for the milk. As for the sugar, the boy had been forced to improvise with a half-chewed toffee that had been stuck to the kitchen floor for quite some time. He plopped it in, hoping the lukewarm water would dissolve it. It didn't. With some trepidation, Frank handed the cup of tea, if indeed it could be called tea, to the Vicar. Reverend Judith peered down into the horror the boy had created. It looked like bathwater left behind by an ogre. She took a sip. Her nostrils flared, her eyes watered, and her face went a shocking shade of green. Somehow, she managed to swallow a mouthful of the foul liquid. Frank smiled to himself. He was rather enjoying this. More tea, Vicar? Oh, bother! Is that the time? Reverend Judith announced, pretending to check her watch, even though she wasn't wearing one. I must be going, so I'm sorry I won't be able to finish my delicious tea. I look forward to seeing you both bright and early at the church on Sunday morning with your poem. Dad nodded his head and tried to force a smile that just wouldn't come. As the front door closed, Dad looked down at the worst cup of tea that had ever been made in the history of the world ever. Well done, mate. That cup of tea got rid of her. What about Sunday morning? What about it? Well, you said you were going to church to read a poem. No, I didn't. Well, you never said you weren't going to church to read a poem. Well, no, but... No buts. You can't let the Vicar down. Why not? Because she's a nice lady. If she's so nice, why did you try to poison the old girl with that tea? Frank was annoyed with his father and didn't want to laugh, but he couldn't help himself. Or seeing his son burst into laughter, Dad shouted, "Gotcha!" I thought those skiddy pants of yours would have been enough to frighten her away, said Frank. Dad did not look pleased at his underpants, which he'd washed only last month, had been described as skiddy. He sat up to inspect them. "Whose pants are you calling Oh dear. Look, Dad, let's go to church on Sunday. Just this once. It's Father's Day after all. You aren't doing anything, are you?" "Sunday morning? No plans." "Well, then I better call Auntie Flip so she can get to work on a special poem for Father's Day." "Yeah, I can't wait," replied Dad, in a tone that suggested he'd be more happy to wait for all eternity. Well, there we are. Now I wonder what's going to happen, whether they will go to that church to read a poem. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? Well, thank you for listening, and I hope you're all well, and please stay safe and keep warm, because it's quite cold. Take care, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.